Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the weekly study. I'm glad that you're joining with me today. We find ourselves in the midst of Genesis chapter 30. We've been focusing in now recently on the life of Jacob, and in the past few weeks about Jacob's life with his father-in-law, with Lavan. Remember, Jacob marries Lavan's two daughters, Rachel and Leah. It is Rachel, that Jacob prefers. And remember, it's always going to be, whenever there are siblings, whenever there's an older and a younger, there's always going to be conflict in Genesis. This is just the nature of the stories that we encounter. And Rachel and Jacob have a difficult time conceiving, but Jacob and Leah do not. And there's enmity, conflict, and challenge between the sisters and their husband. And that is what we've been discussing the last few weeks. This week we begin with God finally remembering, looking after Rachel and looking after Jacob and allowing them to conceive and for Rachel to give birth to a child. At which point Jacob realizes, I think he says to himself, time's up, I need to leave the house of my father-in-law. And thus begins another conflict. Remember, Jacob is here under the graces of Lavan, and in some ways, or in many ways, he's a servant to him. And so what we'll be diving into this week is the beginnings of those negotiations as Jacob tries to free himself from his father-in-law's household and make his way and continue on his own and the journey with now wives and children and a big household with him. So stay with us as we read through some of the verses of chapter 30 and then offer some commentary and reflections. Now God remembered Rachel. God heeded her and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son and said, God has taken away my disgrace. So she named him Joseph, which is to say, may the Lord add another son for me. After Rachel had borne Joseph, Jacob said to Lavan, give me leave to go back to my own homeland. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served you, that I may go. For well you know what services I have rendered you. But Lavan said to him, if you will indulge me, I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me on your account. And he continued, name the wages due from me, and I will pay you. But he said, you know well how I have served you, and how your livestock has fared with me. For the little you had before I came has grown to much, since the Lord has blessed you wherever I turned. And now, when shall I make provision for my own household? He said, what shall I pay you? And Jacob said, pay me nothing. If you will do this thing for me, I will again pasture and keep your flocks. Let me pass through your whole flock today, removing from there every speckled and spotted animal, every dark-colored sheep, and every spotted and speckled goat. Such shall be my wages. In the future, when you go over my wages, let my honesty toward you testify for me. If there are among my goats any that are not speckled or spotted, or any sheep that are not dark-colored, they go there by theft. And Lavan said, very well, let it be as you say. So Jacob's life is not easy. It continues to be met with hardship and difficulty throughout his life. And even here in this next stage where he's hoping to finally leave the house of his father-in-law Lavan, he confronts more difficulty. So let's delve into these verses and try to unpack them and understand them just a little bit. So God finally remembers Rachel and heeds her and opens her womb. We don't really understand, or the text, scripture doesn't tell us what happened. Why is it that finally God remembered Rachel? I think in some ways just kind of it all of a sudden happening teaches us or reminds us of the nature of childbirth, the nature of conception. We probably know either from stories about ourselves or dear loved ones or friends that sometimes individuals, couples have been trying to conceive for many years, to no avail, and sadly, they're despondent, and perhaps they try once more, and sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not, but sometimes it is, and it doesn't seem exactly explainable what happened now that would change things. And so I think that's somehow also reflected here in Genesis chapter 30, verse 22, and it's all of a sudden, it seems like, God remembers Rachel. She conceives and bears a son, and says, God has taken away my disgrace. We've seen this now time and again with all of the children of Jacob. Their stories and their background of their stories, why they're named what they're named, are so tragic, right? Now you think of each time that you mention the name Joseph, or that you read the name Joseph, what does it mean? It's that God has taken away my disgrace. And then she asks, may the Lord add another son for me. Again, this hope that we often feel this in life, that one is not enough. We want more. It's more to think about and more to say, but I'll pause there to just have you check in for yourself. Have you felt these moments all of a sudden where something happens for good fortune for you? Or have you felt a sense of that something is not enough? And so, in these moments then, it's when Jacob realizes it's time for me to go. So he says to Lavan, says to his father-in-law, give me leave to go back to my own homeland. I think we can understand it that now is the moment that once Rachel has given birth to a child, even though she's always now, for the last number of years, has belonged to Jacob, in the ancient world, the sense of, kind of a woman who has not given birth to a child, in some ways perhaps might belong still to her father. But now that she's given birth to a child, she's now kind of part of a new family. And while that might not necessarily resonate with us now, many, many centuries later, I think one thing we can resonate with is the sense of that things change in families, family structures and dynamics change once a child is born. A child is born into this world, and a new generation is created. A family unit between two parents exists, and now that actually separates them in a way that marriage didn't separate them from their parents. I speak to it from personal experience, and I imagine each of you might reflect on that as well, knowing those moments when you were blessed to have a child. With those blessings also came a sense of a new, perhaps defined relationship with the previous generation, your parents or your partner's parents. And so Jacob says, let me go. I've got wives, I've got children, I've served you for many, many years. I need to go. But Lavan still wants to hold on to him. Remember, Jacob can't just freely go. He's still Lavan's servant. And so he's really pleading with Lavan to please let him go. And Lavan doesn't want to do that. We're now seeing even more of that kind of nasty, not mistreatment of people that kind of now history, the way that we view Lavan is now a little bit more clear about. But he's just not treating Jacob very well. He doesn't want to let him go. He's enjoyed his service. He's benefited from him. He says, I've learned that God has blessed me on your account. So I don't actually want to let you go. And so he continues and says, name the wages that you want from me and I'll pay you. Basically to say, let's renegotiate a contract. I want you to continue to work for me, to be my slave. But tell me what you want. But Jacob doesn't want anything. What he wants is to leave. And so Jacob responds, you know how well I've served you and your livestock. And then here it's actually interesting. We learn a little bit more about kind of the context, the backstory, which we hadn't learned before. But apparently Lavan hadn't been doing so well, right? Jacob says, for the little you had before I came now has grown to so much, because God has blessed you wherever I, Jacob says, have turned. So we learn that Jacob's really been a real boon to Lavan and the household, and really provided for them so much. And Laban says, okay, what shall I pay you? Still wanting to hold on to him. And Jacob says, nothing. Just let me go. But realizing that he is still under the servitude, is a slave of Laban, he comes to an agreement. And we'll pick up with this more next week. But it's going to be some interesting kind of conniving. We're seeing Jacob here in his kind of cunning best. Clearly he has a way with animals, a way with what they call as husbandry. And he's able to manipulate things that the average farmer is not able to do. So this is the scheme that he's going to set about. He says that I am going to be able to, what's the payment? The payment is that all of the speckled and spotted animals, or speckled and spotted goats, the goats and the sheep that are speckled and spotted or dark colored, Jacob says those will be mine. I had to look this up because this is not something that I'm familiar with, husbandry and animal life in the ancient Middle East, but apparently these are uncommon types. Most sheep are white. The goats are black and brown, and so it would be uncommon for the sheep to be dark or for the goats to be spotted and speckled. So basically what Jacob is saying is he's giving him this ultimate deal to Laban, where he's basically saying, all of those ones that aren't common, I'm going to take, which Laban jumps on. But clearly Jacob has something in mind. Clearly he's going to be able to manipulate things that they're going to work out for him, which we'll see more next week. And then he says, that's going to be the deal. All of the animals, all of the sheep that are dark colored, all of the goats that are speckled and spotted are going to be mine, Jacob says. And the rest will be yours. Clearly knowing the context now that those are not common types, Laban eagerly accepts the deal and says, very well, let it be as you say. And we'll see next week that Jacob's going to be able to figure things out, that there are going to be many, many more speckled and spotted goats and dark sheep. Again, the details of which are a little confusing, but just to know that what Jacob is asking for is what's uncommon, and somehow he's going to figure out and get his way. Okay, so we're going to pause for here. Next week, we're going to finish up chapter 30 and learn about kind of those final negotiations as Jacob is making his way and Laban is continuing to try to hold on and become angry with Jacob. But until then, I hope you've been enjoying our study. I hope to see you soon, and if not, we'll pick up together next week. Have a great one.